Mike Friday, highly successful coach of the Kenya Sevens rugby team. Welcome to the JSO interview.
Thank you, John.
I have it on good authority that you're called Geezer. Why that nickname?
It goes back to when I was playing at London Wasps, which is where I started my professional rugby career. But South East London boy, born in Chichester but lived in South East London kind of all my life. And I was the footballer that ended up becoming a rugby player that gravitated from South East London across to North West London, which is where London Wasps played. And as a result of that, I was the only guy from South East London in their squad. And at the time there was a song by the Shaman called Ebenezer Good, he's a good, he's Ebenezer Good. And from that I got the nickname Geezer. And that's lived with me, through my rugby career as a player. Playing at Wasps through the professional era, representing England up to England A, captaining England Sevens, and then kind of transcended through into my coaching career when I coached England Sevens as well. So it's been with me since I was 18 years old and has become a part of me.
Is it sort of dumbing down if one plays for a Sevens team as opposed to the 15s? Why didn't you play for the England 15s and in the World Cup and all that?
They didn't pick me. I mean, the reality for it, highly competitive in England to make the England 15s team. I made England A, but unfortunately for me, I was born the same year as Kieran Bracken, Matt Dawson, and Austin Healey. And sometimes you've got to take it on the chin. They were better players than me, and unfortunately, I couldn't force my way past those three to get in the full England team. But my skills and my abilities were suited in terms of as a running scrum half to the Sevens game, and those kind of key components allowed me to kind of take an ascendancy in the shortened Sevens game, and within England and the way that the setup and the strategy set up in England Sevens and England 15s, it gave me an opportunity to get on the world stage as a player, and then as Sevens grew and has continued to grow around the world on the coaching capacity as well.
Right, I'd like to, you as a coach, are we to understand that you live here, you've got a house somewhere and I can come and visit you at the end of this interview? Is that how it's working?
Well, I've got an apartment here. Yeah,
right.
we do have an apartment here. I live with Chris Brown, our strength and conditioner, but I don't live here full time. The nature and the way that we've put in place the Kenya Sevens program is on a season plan, whereby that we're on a kind of 6-week cycles. And the way the cycles work, because we're very heavily focused on strength and conditioning, is there's a 2-week intense strength and conditioning block that Chris Brown will run alongside core skill development, which is put in place by me, but executed by the assistant coach, who's Kenyan-born Felix Ochieng, who I'm mentoring as part of this process. The boys then have a week's rest, and then I come in for a 10-day camp, whereby then it's highly intensive on the technical and the tactical side of the game of Kenya Sevens and rugby. We then fly off for 2 weeks for the tournaments. The boys then need to rest for a week, and then we start the cycle again. So, my blocks in the country are between kind of 7 and 10 days, and then I meet the guys at the venues around the world wherever we play.
Right. When we see coaches, whether they be football coaches or whomever, there's this guy on the touchline, could be Ferguson, could be Arsene Wenger, and they're just sitting there or standing there rather, in suits, getting very irate at wrong decisions. But what is the coach manager, without being too rude, what is it that you can do that I can't?
I think the reality is that the way that we've structured the Kenya Sevens program with the boys is, first and foremost, you've got to create an environment. You talk about creating the right sporting environment, the right training environment to allow these guys to perform. The reality with all boys, they all need boundaries. And when boys have boundaries and they have focus and they have direction, then more often than not, they're going in the right direction and they apply themselves and buy in.
You're using this word boys as if they're sort of little children who need sort of, mummy said go to bed, they can't watch TV. Some of them are grown men.
They're all grown men.
Yes, but their psychology,
exactly.
they're in their prime. The testosterone is at its highest level. Is that what you're saying?
It is, but with all things, whether you're 18, 14 or 40, the reality is you need boundaries, and if you don't have boundaries, you have no direction or focus, be that in sporting life or be that in life in general. So we're very disciplined in our approach to the environment of what an expectation and accountability. And that drive and that accountability of what's expected of you in a training environment, in a playing environment, and how you conduct yourself amongst your fellow players, socially, is crucial if you want to be successful as a team, and especially in a team sport. So
is the image a bit like, you're the headmaster, you're the head teacher of the school, and the whole ethos, the whole culture of the school trickles up to you, the head, the kind of school that you run? No smoking, no sort of bringing in hard drugs. Is that who you are?
There's some parts of that. There are no hard drugs and there is no smoking, but part of it also is empowerment. So the reality is it's a top down and a down up approach, and you meet in the middle, because the reality for any successful sporting environment, you need player empowerment and player buy-in, because they're the commodity, they're the assets, they're the prized possessions of the country that will enable us to be successful. So you have to cherish them, but you have to give them direction and focus to allow them to maximise their potential, both psychologically, mentally, physically, tactically and technically. And you can help educate that with your training, your coaching. But also you've got to allow them the freedom to find their own way and explore themselves in order to get the right decisions. Because if you're in that learning environment, which they are, then if you work things out for yourself, then more often than not, it stays with you. And that whole process of allowing them to have a continuous environment and a constant environment where there's no or minimal outside distractions is part of my role. So, part of a father figure in order to shield them from it, but also to allow them the opportunity to maximise their potential. Sometimes that means tough love, sometimes that means nice love, sometimes that means carrot, sometimes that means stick. There's so many analogies.
Right.
But the reality is we run a very disciplined, empowered environment.
Right.
Where players can challenge coaches.
Right.
We need that two-way interaction, because they are men.
Right. Now let's go back to two things that stick out in the Kenyan sort of psyche regarding rugby sevens. Yeah. First of all, great success. Kenya's been numbered amongst the top 5, and they go from one to another, and they beat New Zealand and they beat France. But the idea is that this consistency, if you can beat a really good team once and you're the coach, why can't you do it all over again? Why do you beat them in Canada and get thrashed in Hong Kong?
That's the holy grail. That's the very nature of two things really, with where we are as a rugby nation or a rugby sevens nation. First and foremost, the competitiveness of the IRB World Seven Series is immense. It's fag paper differences between winning and losing. One decision here, one decision there, because that's the nature of the rugby sevens. One error, one mistake, one bit of brilliance can be the difference between winning and losing. So you've got that part of the uncertainty around consistency of performance. You've also got our training ages. And what I mean by that is that in New Zealand, England, Australia, South Africa, where these mature rugby nations, their athletes are exposed to conditioning, supplementation, nutrition, training regimes at a very young age, 13, 14.
Even when they come from a tiny island like Samoa? What is it? Or the Samoans are sort of having a chicken a day, or lots of protein which we can't supply. I can't believe that.
Samoa and Fiji, national sports, rugby sevens. So it's their systems, their development pathways are far more advanced than ours in Kenya. The reality is of our guys, if you look at my squad a bit at the moment, most of them pick a ball up between the ages of 14, 15, 16. Most of them haven't been in a gym properly and had proper conditioning, or may have 12 months under their belt, whereas these guys at these other Super Rugby powers have been in gyms, in programs for 6-7 years.
Right.
And
so
unfortunately...
In other words, going forward, we've got no chance of ever getting there. We'll always be sort of like, the thin edge of the wedge sort of thing.
I think it's been a little bit pessimistic, because I think what we've seen over the next 7-8 months that we've just seen gone by, with when we've been able to put a structured program in place, is that the athleticism and the genetics of the boys from Kenya are that they will react very, very quickly to supplementation, nutrition and structured conditioning. You've seen that in the way that their physiques have evolved over the 7 or 8 months. So I kind of made the analogy, they've got bodywork like Ferraris at the moment, but now we need to get the engines to match. Right. And unfortunately, that's Mother Nature, that takes time. and you can't accelerate that. But if you put that pathway in place with this group,
right,
and you put it in place with the group that are younger,
right,
then we'll catch up very quickly.
Right.
So
right.
there's a timeline that
right,
we need to be patient.
Which leads me to another